film this weekend, so I hope you'll take those opportunities. That's fantastic.
That's right.
I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, tomorrow night, I think 7:45 in this hall here in the
It
Windsor
is.
Auditorium.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. And here it is. We're going to get to see it
Yes,
this weekend. Very
that's right.
excited.
That's
Let's see that clip.
If you want to look at how the wealthiest interests are warping politics, there's no better place to look than the state level.
Money is a weapon.
More than $3.5 billion has been spent making this election the most expensive on record.
Any chance we'll ever get to be a completely red state? What can we do to help you?
The Koch brothers own a number of companies, refineries that specialize in some of the worst types of oil.
How much have you put into Wisconsin?
Since January of last year, just over $10 million.
$10 million.
Wisconsin is open for business.
You know, the first question people ask, Governor, why haven't you been on a debate? You have to raise $500,000 in the last 90 days. What kind of country are we?
Rick, I'll tell you what. 10,000 bucks?
I'm not in the betting business, but
okay.
I am a Republican. I don't think the party represents what it used to represent, the common man.
If it wasn't for the union, I couldn't have retired.
Started out giving $117 million worth of tax break to wealthy people, and in contrast, doubling the taxes on the poorest parents.
Wisconsin's where the people were overpowered by money.
You cannot even buy a Democrat congressman for $2,500. The Republican congressman seems to take more, $140,000 plus a yacht.
The highest court in the land has the lowest ethical standards.
This is really about to find a way to spend money in elections without telling anyone who you are.
And why would you want to do that?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, we don't discuss our funding, but we're...
Mr. President, game on!
bust the unions, it's over.
It's a power grab to change not only the rules of the game, but to take us out of the process altogether.
This is an agenda that the less than 1% wants.
I can't hire a lobbyist to lobby my causes in Washington. A lobbyist is not in my budget.
This can't happen. This is wrong.
They're just going to keep crushing the middle class, crushing the poor people.
And I'm losing my benefits.
I want to thank Charles Koch.
Don't the Kochs own 6 paper factories and an oil pipeline in Wisconsin?
I'll take another question.
Listen to me, America. You're unimportant. They don't care about you because you don't bring a check.
If you never voted before, I bet you will now.
Barbara Miller is here, and she's going to give her a little bio, and then we'll show a clip of your film. Talk to us about your latest film and a little bit of your previous work.
Yeah, I'm from Switzerland. I'm working since 12 years as a documentary film director. I'm originally a lawyer. Forbidden Voices is really based on the internet. It's a film about 3 bloggers, female bloggers from Iran, China, and Cuba. So the film wouldn't have been possible without the possibility to, over the internet, trying to find my protagonists and also contacting them. So the internet was really basic, but the important thing. Mm-hmm. But it was also very difficult because I started like 7 years ago, and in Switzerland, like blogging was totally unknown. It was like, what do you want to do? A film about female bloggers? They had no idea what it was. I mean, time really changed a lot. So
7 years, that is fast. Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Well, we'll watch a clip.
Ça fait quelque temps que j'ai pu parler avec Deng Jinyan sur Skype. On est vraiment très inquiet de sa situation.
Yoani Sanchez from Cuba could not be here.
The first time they brought me for interrogation, it was for hours non-stop. The main accusation was my blog. I never thought I would see a day that people die in the streets for the basic right of their existence.
Mi blog tiene 14 millones de hits al mes en el mundo.
Zheng Jingyang, elle aborde des sujets que peu de personnes osent aborder.
Internet, cell phones, Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, weblogs. The government did a total blockage.
These women receive death threats. They have been beaten, kidnapped, imprisoned.
说真话不单单不仅仅需要勇气。
Time and again, these women have discovered a very simple truth. That courage can actually be contagious.
La vérité fait peur au régime totalitaire.
Talk to us about your, Angela Tucker, you are Miss Twitter, I hear.
Oh. I am on Twitter quite a bit. So I'm here with, I co-produced a film called The New Black, which is the closing night film that looks at gay marriage in Maryland and black people working on both sides, both for it and against it. But I also have a web series called Black Folk Don't, which looks at stereotypes in the black community. And I'm filming now, and we're in our 3rd season, and it's going to come out in November. So, you know, the journey of, I can talk more about sort of the journey of getting that off the road, but definitely having a strong sort of presence on social media has played a really big role in that. Just from, you know, sure, from getting people to watch it, but also just to getting people to be in it. You know, just people feeling like they have access to you has really been important, especially when you're making subject matter that can feel a little, I guess, controversial.
Okay.
So.
Controversial. Great. Well, let's get a clip. Closing night film.
Don't let people get you talking about gay rights. This is not about a gay right. There's a difference between civil rights and sacred rights.
Same-sex marriage is going to be put to vote here in Maryland.
No same-sex marriage in the state of Maryland. Honk your horn if you believe.
Many people in the state's religious community, especially in African American churches, oppose gay marriage and are vowing to continue their fight against it.
Thousands of Marylanders around the state want to see marriage defined and upheld between one man and one woman.
One of the biggest donors is pushing a strategy to drive a wedge between gays and African Americans.
All of a sudden, it was black versus gay.
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law.
Marquise had asked, when are you and Mama getting married? Well, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Regardless of what laws they may write, God designed the family.
Who has been the hardest hit in the issue of family? The African American community.
We were blasphemous enough to compare the gay movement with the movement for civil rights and black folks. Is gay the new black?
I believe this election is going to be a referendum on the church. It's going to be a referendum on black preachers.
If we don't reach out to these people, who's going to reach out to these people? Opposition.
Remember, vote for question 6.
God do not make lesbians.
I certainly did not interrupt you.
To agree to disagree.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
but let me finish.
You're right.
Sexuality in the African American community is taboo. We don't discuss it in any form.
I feel like I couldn't be myself because I thought that I would shame you.
Okay, are you ready to vote?
I ain't gonna go around gay shit though.
Okay, why? What's up?
I ain't get that.
Let's be clear. This is the unfinished business of black people being free.
We are the sheep of another fold. Them we must reach out.
I'm ready to win. I'm ready to make history.
Tell me some things that black folk don't do.
Y'all got me on the spot right now.
I can't think there's anything that black folks don't do.
I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised.
From New Orleans, Ninth Ward, Lower Ninth Ward.
Well, hey.
Black folk don't swim.
Have eating disorders.
Not only is that not true, but it's becoming increasingly not true.
Black folk don't camp.
We don't like animals. Well, we do like dogs.
Black folks don't commit suicide.
We have a line that we draw.
Black folks don't do atheism.
It's kind of like their dirty little secret.
Blackness is portable. We don't lose it when we go do some stuff that black folk don't do.
Black folk don't get married.
That question got me a little nervous.
If there's 40 million black people, there's 40 million ways to be black.
Most people are familiar with kind of the distribution, exhibition part of social media, helping and filmmaking coming together. So, and I like that all of you have a component of it being from the beginning. From you mentioned from finding your subjects, whether it was in Forbidden Voices, or you mentioned the same thing, getting your. So let's talk about from the beginning, like at the beginning of the process of each of your films. How did social media play into your efforts? Whoever wants to go first. And I think the web series is a little different, so we'll talk about that a little bit separately later. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Tough one to start with,
Tough
right?
one to start with. I guess that's my question. For the new Black, I think, so we actually couldn't really use that much social media in the beginning of the new Black, and I'm curious actually to hear Tia's thoughts on this in terms of working on a film that is subject matter that is a little contentious. And in order to secure interviews, we couldn't, I think it is important in the beginning of your film process to incorporate social media, but we couldn't really do that because we have interviews with people on both sides of this issue, and we couldn't make it seem like we were being partial to one side while we were securing those interviews. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have a Facebook page. We didn't have a Twitter account. We actually stayed out of that space until we were at a rough cut. And I think that's an important thing to mention because even though it's important to have your social media in place, you need to know what your topic is and what's right and what's appropriate. And even thinking about things that you put up on Twitter and on Facebook, the kinds of things that you share are things that are associated with your film. So forever, exactly. So we actually just stayed away from that until we were at a rough cut and we felt like we had done all of our interviews, and then we could, start to build that up around, and it was very like kind of basic sharing of articles. It really didn't take on a slant until, the film was done, really.
Okay, excellent. What about?
I would say the same. Well, for a couple of reasons. First of all, yeah, if you want to be under the radar at all, or if you're still kind of finding your film, you don't really want to put that out there on social media. It's also pretty time consuming, working with social media, and if you're, you really have to have time to do it. If you're in pre-production and production and post-production, there's very little time to do that. That said, I was just on a panel at the New York Film Festival with a friend who partnered with Frontline to make partner with Frontline and ProPublica to do some investigative work around the police shootings in New Orleans of unarmed civilians. It was horrific stories about people who died, but there was no clue as to how they died and who shot them. And so they put those morgue photographs and some of the police photographs online and invited people to submit their tips because they were really trying to do an investigation without much help from the New Orleans Police Department to figure out, what were the circumstances behind these people's deaths and how can we, force some accountability. And so they used, it wasn't my film, I wish it was, but they invited participation. In fact, they actually found they were able to investigate and they picked one of the cases because of all the tips that they got. They found who was culpable. Unfortunately, that officer hasn't been put away yet, but it's a pretty exciting way to incorporate social media from the get-go.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And you had to, right? Did you find your subjects via social media?
Yeah, we had the internet. It was the only possibility
Right.
to do all the research,
Sure,
all the
sure.
blogs or on the internet. So I also contact them through Facebook.
Mhm.
And of course, but I had this idea in the beginning to really do a blog about also all the filmings. But as we just had to work undercover, we went all to these places as tourists, just me and the cameraman. So it would have been impossible to talk about all this. It would have been really like a film besides, because it's really interesting, really hard, really difficult. My cameraman has been arrested in Iran. So it was really always, yeah, kind of stressful, but impossible to write about it because then you never know who will read it. And
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous to write about it.
And also the thing, when you're doing a documentary, you don't know in the beginning how it will end and what will be the main story. And so yeah, it's right. When you write about it in the beginning, maybe it's totally different what's coming out in the end. And it's extremely time consuming.
It is.
I mean, also nowadays, I would love to do much more, on Twitter. But you need to have a big crew, or people who really want to do it and who take their time, and freelance people who do it. Otherwise, I know how you can
staff
do it.
people, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned Kickstarter that you use and Facebook. What other social media avenues do you use in the process? And Twitter. You mentioned Twitter, of course.
Instagram is great. I think it's also figuring out, well, first you should decide who you want your audience to be before you just pick platforms, because I think what I learned is that, Instagram, you really reach kind of a younger audience on Instagram. So, I've used Instagram not on other projects that we knew we really wanted to try to reach a young audience. Okay. And, and the great thing about Instagram is it allows people to, probably a lot of people here use it, people see sort of what's happening with the film, and you don't have to kind of think of something kind of clever and cool to say. You can just be like, a photo here, Citizen Jane, panel, lots of good points, done, and it's like out there and people can share it. I've used Tumblr also, again, with sort of a previous film that I was trying to reach a younger audience. So I've picked the platforms in terms of what felt appropriate for the project. For the New Black, we're using Facebook a lot, and Facebook and Twitter are sort of our main platforms. But we brought on someone to handle Facebook, particularly because you need with Facebook, things need to be designed a certain way in order for people to be able to share them. So like for photos, it needs to be something that has information about the film so people can share it. It's like if someone just shares your photo, no one knows it has anything to do with the New Black. So you need sort of a something that gives information, about the film that people can share. So so that's some of the things that we started to do, but we're at the beginning of it.
Excellent.
Well, after the Jay Muir article came out in the New Yorker magazine in May, we penned an op-ed that the Huffington Post ran, and there was also a really active Reddit forum. I'd never really engaged with Reddit before, and it was pretty...
Can you explain how Reddit works?
From what I understand, and please correct me, it's a forum. You subscribe to it, and you can engage with any number of threads. And if you like the thread, you kind of give it a vote, a thumbs up or thumbs down, and then you can track which forum gets the most guests, most visitors, most comments, and most votes. And they also have like an Ask Me Anything line. I think Tom Hanks just used it to promote his new film, but it's a nice way to engage, not with the usual suspects, with people who you might not otherwise come across. So that's what's kind of exciting. I mean, you can have your own Facebook site and certainly your own online presence, but that's anticipating that people are going to come to you. But people aren't going to come to you necessarily. You got to go to where they are. And when people start talking about your film or certainly the subject of your film in other forums, you need to find them and engage with them and offer up the film sort of as a way to further mobilize or educate or engage.
Okay. How active are you in the social media right now on the film?
We've taken a little pause, but we've taken a little bit of a pause. We had a very engaged summer, and we're looking to start things up again. When we are releasing a film, there's only so much you can do to talk about a film when it's not out there, because then people start getting a bit frustrated, like, where the heck is it? Like, enough already, just give me the damn film. So that's where we're at, you know.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Barbara, what platforms, you mentioned Facebook, are there other?
Yeah, Twitter a little bit. YouTube sometimes, putting up some clips.
great.
This is not really bad. It really works quite well.
Okay, there's controversy about that, whether to put clips on or not, and with distributors and all of that, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think clips is very well. I mean, when we came out with our movie, everyone said, oh, you have to put the movie on YouTube.
Wow.
That the world can see it. But I mean, there is a really big decision you have to make. I mean, if you put it on there, you can't go to any festival anymore. You can't sell it for TV. You can't sell it for VOD, so you're just out. But everyone said, "Oh."
At the moment, it's like that, but maybe
Yeah,
not
maybe
always.
it will change. At the moment, it's really. I mean, you really have to make the decision. Do you want the huge public, which would have probably happened with a film like having 3 bloggers, and they would have spread the word and everything?
Well, maybe not. I mean, who here has watched a full film on YouTube?
Good question.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
YouTube.
But hang on.
Audience,
but
so.
maybe I would say, a quarter of the audience. But you can watch a lot of films free on YouTube, including Trouble the Water. We didn't put it there. But a lot of people just don't do that. And so if you just put it up there and say, oh yeah, it's out there, that's assuming people even know about it. And if you exploit other means like television and streaming subscription services like Netflix and then actually you're expanding your audience. It's not really about monetizing our work, because everybody knows that we can't really make money. If we can break even, that's a really good thing, but it's really about expanding, the audience for our work. And so you got to get to people where some people will only, download, work. Some people want to stream it. Some people only watch it on TV. Some people actually still like those things called DVDs. Anybody know what a DVD is? So don't fault yourself. I don't think putting it on YouTube means that more people will actually see
And
your
it's
work.
the experience. People still want to come into a theater and talk about the film and be with other people. So
Yeah, I think it would be nice. I mean, I think we will put it on YouTube maybe in half a year or so, because we really want to spread it. But like with having a distributor, having a world sales agent, I mean, we couldn't. And we had a lot of money we invested, so I mean, the producer invested a lot of money, so you have to find a way how to get at least a little bit of the money back. And I mean, we have all these contracts where it's written, if it's ever on YouTube or somewhere on the social media, you can't get any contract with us.
So that is the relationship. So
this is the
all of you finding
relationship.
that when you're talking to distributors, there are
Sure.
rules around
even
your
with
social
film
media?
festivals, with the bigger ones, to say if it's online, forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how it's here. Maybe it's different in the States, but I don't think
But there's
so.
all sorts of, I mean, we all film a whole lot more than we end up putting in our film.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, my film is 88 minutes long, but I've got, hours more, even of cut sequences that had to fall to the editing room floor. And those are great things to post, because they're important, they're relevant, and just because they didn't make the film doesn't mean that they can't stand alone and engage people. And so we find YouTube is really useful for that.
Excellent.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, for The New Black, we actually did an op doc for the New York Times, and we did that around, because we're in the same situation where we had all of this footage that we weren't going to use, and it just seemed like a really great opportunity to create a piece that could really lay out what is going on in Maryland. So it's very kind of, this is the fight for gay marriage in Maryland. These are the players. It isn't like trying to take a side. It's just like, this is the basic information. And we used footage in that we didn't use in the film, and there are characters in that we really loved, that we knew we probably would make the film. And so that was a really great way to get a whole different set of eyes onto the project, and get like that huge New York Times audience. And so that's another opportunity too that we use to engage audiences.
Yeah, you're right. We did the same thing a little bit like that. We did like a web special on our website, and I had like a 4th protagonist from Kenya, and her story's there, and a lot of background stories and material we didn't use. Excellent. So that if people are really interested, you can go there and see other people or inform you more. Yeah, I think it's a really good way to use the material you still have.
Excellent. Do your subjects, how do they talk about the film now that it's in theaters and stuff? Do they blog about it at all, or now?
Yeah, they
Okay.
do. Yeah,
Okay.
they do.
So that's still out there also, ongoing?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Let's talk a little bit about the web series side of things.
Oh,
so
yeah, sure.
that's kind of a Wild Wild West, new frontier, right? The web series?
Yeah. I mean, when I started it, it really was Wild Wild West because it was, I guess it's been about, this is my third season, so 3 years ago. So when so the story of how it happened is there's this organization called the National Black Programming Consortium, and they're a funding arm of public television. So public television has this thing called the Minority Consortia, and NBPC is one of them. They put out a call for a web series. They want a documentary web series. And at that time, there weren't really that many. The fiction web series were just kind of starting to take off, but it was kind of pre the Awkward Black Girl thing, pre like sort of all the web series that have put web series a little more on the map. So I was in the middle of finishing up a documentary that I directed called Asexual, and I was really excited to make something really quickly. In terms of working on these documentaries, you work on them for years. And I was like, wait, I could just like make something quickly? Sign me up. So, so the idea for Black Folk Don't just came to me like on a run. I just kind of was like, what is something that I can do that feels contained, that feels interesting? And I, in the work that I direct, I like to incorporate humor in it as well. So this idea of Black Folk Don't came into my head as someone who's Black, who does a lot of things that typically Black folk don't do. How can we use that as a way to, look at stereotypes around Blackness? So I sent an email out to all my friends, all my Black friends, saying, what are some things that Black folk don't do? And that email chain really got it going because there were some people who were like, there's nothing we don't do, da-da-da. And then there were other people who were like, here's 12 things that I'm sorry, I don't know any Black people who do these things. And then some people say, I agree with this, I agree with that. And so that email chain sort of gave me the sort of energy to say, okay, there's something here. So I did a proposal, I got funded. The first season I shot in New York, and the topics were pretty much the topics that felt like they had the most kind of energy and fire to them through that email exchange. And when we put up the series, and it's been a learning process all along. So at first we had the series kind of on its own site. We didn't use YouTube. Then it just seemed kind of crazy not to use YouTube. So then we kind of also put it up on YouTube. So every year we've kind of learned something new and different to do. The second year we actually did a poll on Facebook for topics. So, and the highest rating ones were the ones that we did. So this year, I just said I want to do the ones I want to do. So, and we've changed the location every year. So that is, because for me what was interesting was thinking about how you experience, the way you experience your Blackness, how that differs from where you live within the United States also. So New York is sort of its own special place, and then we did New Orleans because I'm obsessed with New Orleans, so we did that. Then now we're doing the state of California to kind of like widen it a little. So I went to LA, Oakland, San Francisco. So, in terms of the web series and getting people to watch it, it's just a lot of different things. It's, starting out with National Black Programming Consortium has like a mailing list that has like, tens of thousands of people on it. So it goes out there, it goes out. Facebook plays a really big role in getting the web series out. But then it's been a lot of write-ups. I mean, and we have kind of, I wouldn't quite call her a publicist, but she's someone who's strong on social media who pitches the piece to different writers. And, it's just things like, Ebony wrote about us once, and we were in Time Magazine. That was totally random. We didn't place that. That was like, Sheree, who has a column, wrote about Black Folk Don't once, and that was like huge for it. So we're still, every year we just kind of figure it out as we go along, but I think at this point like 1 million people have seen it, and that's, in terms of my work, that's more people than have ever seen anything I've done. So it's really exciting, and what's great about it is it's really easy for me to do, and I love doing it, and so it's kind of the best of all worlds there.
And kind of back to what we talked about, the distribution side of it. So people watch it for free.
Yeah.
Do you have a grant that pays for production?
Yeah, so I have a grant that pays for production. They sort of, the first 2 years, they sort of gave me, I mean, I'll tell you, I don't care, it's $20,000. And and then this year it's like 35 for production, and then they put a little money, very little, into like promotion. So promotion, things like Facebook ads, and which are really, really important. If you spend any money on anything, Facebook ads. Because Facebook ads allow you to customize, and again, it just kind of goes back to knowing your audience. It allows you to customize who sees, you know, your posts. And so
real specific.
Like really specifically, like, you know, so I know just from the years of doing this, I know that pretty much like the people who watch Black Folk Don't, of the Black people, it's like people between like 18 and 40 who listen to NPR, who, you know what I mean? It's like kind of, you get down to like that kind of level of specificity, and then the posts go to them, and those are the people that you know are going to watch it. And that's something that you just kind of have to assess from years of doing it, I know. But then there's also kind of like the white progressive audience that watches it, that's a certain age. So then you do some Facebook posts to those. So we do that, a lot of that, and we do, every once in a while we'll do an ad someplace that's kind of like a prominent blog that also we feel like will reach the audience. But it's really just a lot of people sharing it. That's and we do spend some time trying to get sort of more high profile people to tweet about it, or because that also gets just a lot of eyeballs to it too. Like, and when NPR tweeted about it, that we got like something like 100,000 views that day off of NPR. So and those are things that you can really work on yourself. You don't need to like hire some. I mean, it's great if you can, but just in terms of tools that you can use in your everyday, you can just email someone directly, and if somebody likes it, I had never met Touré. He got forwarded the link to it from someone else and wrote Time Magazine about it. I didn't meet him until after he did it, and then I sort of sent him an email on Twitter, and he was like, I love the series, and he lived like 10 blocks away from me, and we had a cup of coffee. I mean, it was like that kind of thing. So those things happen all the time, and if people like your work, and it's easy for them to support it, then they do.
And are both seasons available?
Yeah, both seasons are. You can go to blackfolkdon't.com and watch them there. This is an important thing. So the second season, PBS.org took over the series and they show it on their website, so you can see Black Folk Don't on PBS.org also. That was a really big moment in terms of them incorporating something that they feel it's very provocative. They have a lot of anxiety about it, as I get lots of emails about it. But it's a big step for them. So and you can also watch it on good old YouTube if you want to see the crazy comments. That's YouTube is where you should really watch.
So feel free to binge watch before the
the third season in November. Go ahead and binge watch.
How long is each piece?
They're about 6 minutes each. The first season are like 6 to 7. I think now it's like 5 to 6, and it sounds like a little bit of a difference, but honestly, once you get 7 to 8, people don't watch it the same. So we've really tried to keep it 6 and under now, because we also you can look at the stats and you can see the episodes, the 2 episodes that are longer that I think are, I mean, obviously I don't know, but I feel like they're good episodes, and there's a drop off. So we kind of just were like, okay, let's try to in the future keep it 6 minutes and under. So people can also watch it on their phones easily. Because a lot of people, we also, in doing Google Analytics, you can see where people are watching things. And people are watching things on their phones, and you don't really want to watch something on your phone for like 10 minutes. I mean, you can, but it's not comfortable, so.
I do. I hold it out here. My wrist gets tired.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I think you touched on lessons learned, but let's talk about maybe biggest lessons learned that you would want to share with potential filmmakers out there looking at social media, weighing the options. Biggest lesson learned.
Well, just to build off of what Angela just said, I think if you're building a website, you can make it really cool with all sorts of bells and whistles. But since a lot of people do access it from their phones, you might want to just trim that down, because you don't want something that takes a long time to load. It's going to frustrate people. They're going to click off right away. You also, you don't want to give people too many times to click. They got to click once and get to where they're going, because people don't click 2 or 3 or 4 times, I think. And look, there's a huge digital divide in this around the world. So I think even though we have all these great ways to reach people online, we also have to be cognizant that so many people don't have access to, really high-speed internet, or to, or to computers. That said, a lot of people do access the internet on their phones, so think mobile when you're thinking about, getting out to people. And
It's a part of your plan, not your entire plan, social.
it should be, you should be aware of it. It should be something. And anytime there is something like a, NPR story, or, when, for us, anytime there's been a hit in the mainstream press about our films, we really want to try to capitalize on it and make sure that we can bring those people to us, because there's a little bit of a window of opportunity, but then that window of opportunity leaves. So, check out our website at citizencoke.com. Please sign up with your email address, because that helps us get to you, because there's nothing like just the old-fashioned writing letters to people to send them updates, to keep them informed, and to build those relationships.
Where can they find you on Facebook and Twitter as well?
Yeah, there's a Facebook site, Twitter handle. Gosh, I should know these things because I'm on this panel. It's Citizen Coke Film is our Twitter handle, and Facebook is Citizen Coke Film too.
Okay. It is a lot to remember sometimes. Barbara?
Lesson. I think it's really, as you said, it's really, really important if you're working with Twitter or Facebook. I mean, if you don't get any articles in the mainstream news, or we had a thing on CNN or so, if it's not there in the mainstream news, I think often a lot of people don't hear about it. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to have both sides. Yeah, and I think with the internet, what I really learned about it is that you can really reach someone in China, someone in the last place in a little village in Iran, and. It means it really goes out to the world. Mm-hmm. It's not just your little community. This is really fascinating about it. But it also is just, sometimes it's just on the internet. Mm-hmm. And it's important that it also gets real. And it gets, I think for younger people it's different. I think we still have this really feeling of reality and virtual reality. And if you're younger, it's more like the whole thing is together.
Yes, so a generation divide as well as a digital divide.
Right. Absolutely.
I think it will change. I think it will change totally. With the new generation, all these virtual, digital things will be more real. You have this feeling of being more real. Yeah. So I think it's important to use both strategies.
Where can they find you you and the film?
Facebook is just Forbidden Voices. Okay. And we have forbiddenvoices.net as a website. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Well, I think just when you were talking about the generational thing, it's interesting because this is a lesson learned from my first film, Asexual, which was, that was a film that I had been working sort of in the documentary scene and had a sense of what success was, which was, a major broadcaster is going to buy my film and it's going to screen at all of these sort of like certain kinds of festivals, and that's going to be like how I'm going to gauge the success of my film. And with Asexual, because it's about people who experience no sexual attraction and it's kind of a, like an alternative topic, it was, I didn't get a broadcaster in the US, and I got into festivals, but most of the festivals I got into were in Europe, so I couldn't even really go to them. So, I mention this because the 1% of the population is asexual. Most of them are watching things online. A lot of them are very young. They're talking to each other through online platforms. And we kind of sat down and said, we really need to reach the audience of our film where they are. And we need to stop having the sense of, this is the way we need to roll out this film because this is what success is. Like, you're going to show your movie in a movie theater. And because with Asexual, people it was like they weren't going to see it in a movie theater, but they were really interested in the subject matter. So we just really stuck to digital distribution. And, we really worked hard on VOD, and we worked hard on having people be able to watch it online in all different kinds of spaces. And, we made a lot of our money back just from doing it that way. And the lesson for me was, really figuring out what is the audience that makes sense for your film. And for Asexual, it was having it be in an online space, me doing like chats with people versus me not necessarily doing as many screenings where I'm physically there, or having David, who's the protagonist, be there instead of me because he identifies as asexual. So again, it's just figuring out what is the right rollout for your film, what makes sense for the film and the project that you've made versus what you see happen to other projects. Because every project has a different life, and like New Black is a totally different life because of the issues that it's about. People really need to be in a room together talking about these issues in order for change to come about. So I would say that's like the biggest thing to think about rather than a lesson learned in terms of whatever project you're making.
Great. We're going to open it up in just a minute for questions. So you guys get your questions ready, but I have one last question. The positive things about the audience being able to have access to you. There are sometimes detractors, and there are some issues sometimes. Do you want to talk a little bit about you handle that side? When you have some negative things happening via social media, how is your response? Do you have something in place, a process in place, how you do that, or?
Like responding to
tweeting negative things about the film, or antagonistic people on Twitter or on Facebook, that kind of stuff. I know you can block them, but
I think all of us are working with controversial, social issue subject matter, and I think we all invite.
Okay.
I invite. That kind of engagement. I think that the last thing you want people to say when they come away from your film or your work or your series is, "Oh, that was nice." I don't know. Like you want, people can love it, people can hate it, but at least they're thinking and talking about it. So for me, I tend to ignore creepy people, whether they're online or not. But I love a good debate.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a really strange start when we put our trailer on YouTube. We had like really a huge amount of negative comments because it's really critical against Cuba, or let's say against the Cuban government. And they're really, all these people are extremely active on the internet. So it means there were like hundreds of, it's all a lie, and they're bought by the CIA, and we decided, because we were really exhausted from all the things, and the film started, so nobody of these people have seen the film.
Sure.
So we closed down the commentary section of YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, we did, because it was really, we really would have needed someone to handle it, to write these people, to discuss. And afterwards, I had a lot of emails and on Facebook, and there we really had discussions. And also on panels. If it's a discussion, it's really wonderful in festivals. I can really discuss with people for 2 hours, but if people are just screaming at you, your CIA has financed this film and all these things, it's like, it's extremely destructive. And if you have a film that is not out there yet, and you get all these comments, it can really
no one else out there saying anything. Right.
Then it's really difficult, because then it's not a discussion. So I think it really depends. But it was really a hard decision to say, we are closing down this comment section.
Do you think as the film gets out, will you open it back up? Would you consider that?
We haven't done it, but we could do it now, because now there is a lot of discussion, and so it's good, and the film is out there, and everyone can see it, so it's different. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, for Black Folk Don't, the comments they just amuse me more than anything. They're really crazy. So PBS has this thing called like an online film festival, and so they decided to put the first episode of Black Folk Don't as part of their online film festival. The first episode is Black Folk Don't Tip, right? So, and so what happened is they put it on their online film festival, and they got like hundreds of comments within like 2 hours. And so, and I remember I was on vacation, and they were like emailing, and then they were texting me like, we need to talk to you. And I was like, okay. So I called them, and it was kind of a weird thing, because I had a conference call with somebody from National Black Programming Consortium, and they were just really surprised. It was like they were almost really surprised that there were like racist people who were watching PBS, and I said, and I didn't want to be like, there are racist people everywhere, but I sort of had to be like, well, I'm sorry. I thought you might have been prepared. It was up on YouTube, that episode. So there are comments. There are already kind of all kinds of comments there. So I would have thought they'd look at that and use that as sort of some kind of indicator. And I said, yeah, I mean, because the sort of range of comment goes from, black people, I don't like a lot of things that black people do, like da-da-da-da-da, which is, that's kind of one tangent. Because a lot of people write comments and they don't watch it. Mm-hmm. So they use it as a space just to like write kind of hateful things. And then there are people who are uncomfortable, like there are people who are black who are uncomfortable with sort of talking about stereotypes in that space. That's a discussion I'm happy to engage in because I understand that feeling and I love having those conversations. But the ones being like, yeah, black folk don't do a lot of things like da-da-da, that's not something that I'm interested in. But I did have to decide some way to address it or to respond because just in terms of, I think it made PBS feel a little like I was owning that this is my series. And so I have sort of like a little bit of language that I literally copy and paste. I don't write new things every time. It's just sort of like, it's a little bit like, this is what this is about to me. This is what it means. I'd really like you to watch it before you comment. And I just kind of leave it at that because, I think also for me, it's not, as someone who's black, I don't really want to read a lot of racist stuff and I don't enjoy it. So I don't really, and I'm not going to like change someone in that space. So I think when you're making sort of provocative things, you just have to like, back it up and say, okay, you guys just have your own discussion.
Thank you for sharing that because I do feel like there is some empowerment behind a keyboard. You're an anonymous person and things can get kind of crazy. So
yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Yep, right here.
You got a microphone right here.
Oh, all right, excellent. So we can hear you.
Hello.
It's for the TV.
Oh, it is. Hi, TV. All right. So this question is for Barbara mainly, and I know during documentary filmmaking, you all can chime in on this if you want, but you no doubt build a certain relationship with your subjects, and the fewer subjects you build, the closer the relationship. So for your particular story, were you ever afraid that as this film got distributed, there would be some backlash for the safety of your subjects? And did that affect your process at all?
This was one of the main questions from the beginning because I knew I will talk about 3 women who are really courageous and who are really already living a lot of repressions. And so for me, it was really crucial in the beginning to choose 3 women who are blogging in their personal names, who are not being anonymous, so that I don't have the responsibility to try to keep this anonymity, and maybe I expose them, so it was really important. All 3, they really say they think it helps for them to be in public. So for them, it was also, I discussed with them this subject, and they said, no, if we're going more public, it's a better protection for us. So, I mean, you never get, as a documentary filmmaker, never get rid of this responsibility. And in the end, they really wanted. I have shown them also the film before it was released. I mean, it wasn't possible with the Chinese one, as she was still under house arrest. She has seen it like 4 months ago, finally. And we can say now that the film is out, it had a good impact. Yoani Sanchez was, after 10 years, finally able to travel outside Cuba. So she said the movie for sure helped, because it was like not only her blog telling the stories, but also like someone from outside talking about it. Zheng Xingyuan, the Chinese one, was some month ago. She was able to leave house arrest after 4.5 years, to study in Hong Kong. So yeah, in the end, it had like a more positive impact than a negative, but of course it's always a risk. Sure.
Good question. Another question. over here, back here.
Hello. I feel like you guys all have sort of subjects that are appropriate to the time we live in. And I just wanted to know if you guys ever feel like there's like, do you ever feel like that the subject of your documentary are time sensitive, and does social media sort of help you facilitate getting your message out there before it sort of becomes a thing of the past? Not that these will, but...
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I mean, I think when you're covering something that's topical, that's related to breaking news or news event, you want it to be fresh and not seem stale, but you also want to, if you're making film, you also want to make enduring work, work that can be seen as a document of our times. 5 years from now, 50 years from now, if film survives, or if HD now survives, 100 years from now. So, but for example, yesterday, this week, the Tea Party shut down, the extremists in the Republican Party and the Tea Party shut down our federal government. And that has everything to do with the film that we made about money in politics, about the extremists who've taken over the Republican Party. Because in our film, we give voice to, in particular, Republicans who are, outraged that their own party has been taken over by the Tea Party folks. So it's really what's happening now resonates with a lot of what's in our film, even though the film documents a point in time about 2 years ago. So we are actively trying to make those connections in social media and beyond. Yeah.
Another question? I think I'll go back to the first question we had. Do you guys feel, the other two, that your subjects? I mean, is there a social media backlash or any? How are your subjects feeling your social media of the film? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different for Black Folk Don't, because Black Folk Don't is just people just come in and out for interviews. But I think for the New Black, I think we still are screening the film in spaces that I think the subjects in the film are seen as sort of the heroes. A lot of them are seen as sort of the heroes that they are. And many of the subjects of our film are have a strong social media presence on their own. So I think that's why this time is really interesting, is people are already putting themselves out there, like you were saying. So it's kind of different from when you would make documentaries and people were totally anonymous. Now people are already putting themselves out there either through Facebook, Twitter, what have you. So so you still have a responsibility, but it does take a little bit of the pressure off, in the sense of people already get the power of putting their words out there, that there's going to be a response to it. The people that I've primarily worked on projects with, I think it is very different for someone who is less involved in social media. But in our film, in The New Black, we do interview ministers who were fighting against gay marriage, and we haven't really gotten a backlash from them at all. And I think I don't think that'll really happen, but I think we've been really open and accessible to them along the whole process, and so we'll just kind of have to see.
Even more so, your people are out there. So
yeah, no, I mean the people that we focus on, that we spend a lot of time with in Citizen Coke. Look, there's always that moment where you take a deep breath when you show your subjects the film, whether it was Kimberly and Scott, with Trouble the Water, or our current subjects with Citizen Coke, and you sort of hope and pray that they're good with it, but they might not be. When we traveled, Carl and I traveled down. Carl Deal is my filmmaking partner. And he and I traveled down to New Orleans to show Kimberly and Scott Trouble the Water before our Sundance premiere, right after we'd submitted it to Sundance. And, you take a deep breath and you hope they love it. And I just was, I remember Kimberly turned to me and said, y'all did a good job. And that was just like, what, And yet, you know, these are people who are really exposing themselves. They've invited you into their lives. You know, in this case with Trouble the Water, which was much more of a verite film, you know, they've invited you into their lives. In this case, it was also some of the most difficult points in their lives, where, you know, where they've lost their homes, they've lost property, they've lost family. And so there's, you know, can be a lot of painful moments triggered by that. What was really exciting about Trouble the Water was that we got to go on the road with Kimberly and Scott as they presented the film with us to audiences around the country in the film festival release, in the theatrical release, and Kimberly got to see the film through audiences' eyes, and I think it was constantly this process that she talks about. I won't speak for her, but I will tell you what she says about it, which is that she's seen herself through an entirely different light because. You know, people see her as a hero in the film, and that's certainly not the narrative that was told to her as she was growing up, you know, in her community and outside of her community. So the film has been sort of transformative for her, and she certainly used social media. She put out a CD in conjunction with the release of the film. Cool. She's got a website. She's got a speakers bureau. She goes out with the film and continues to speak with it. So she's utilized, you know, Facebook and Twitter. Her website is Unbreakable, oh goodness, Unbreakable Amaze. I'm blocking. Her CD website is bornhustlerrecords.com.
Awesome.
So she's certainly used it.
You can see it on YouTube. So
no, don't do that. It's because it's a bad version on YouTube.
Okay.
That's where you can actually get it from your library here, and that would be the best version to see it.
I was just trying to tie it back.
Yeah.
Thank these ladies for being with us and sharing the knowledge, and come see their films.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more Susan Jane Film School panel.